I pressed my palm against the cold glass window of the psychiatric ward, watching the maple trees outside turn gold in the October sun. 22 months. That's how long my own daughter had kept me locked in this place, telling the world I'd lost my mind. But I hadn't lost anything, except my trust in the one person I thought would never betray me. My name is Richard Castellano. I'm 68 years old, and until 2 years ago, I was the founder and CEO of Castellano Pharmaceuticals, a company I built from nothing into a $300 million empire. Now I'm patient number 4,721 at Meadowbrook Mental Health Facility in Greenwich, Connecticut, wearing hospital scrubs and taking pills I don't need for a disease I don't have. The nurse walked past my door for the third time this hour. I knew her routine better than she did. Tuesday afternoons were always quieter. That's when I allowed myself to remember how I ended up here, even though every memory felt like swallowing glass. It started 3 years ago, right after my wife Catherine died. Pancreatic cancer took her in 6 months, and I spent every one of those days by her hospital bed, holding her hand while our empire ran itself. Catherine was my partner in everything. We met in college, got married the day after graduation with $17 between us, and built our pharmaceutical company from a tiny lab in our garage. She was the scientist, I was the businessman, and together we created something extraordinary. We had 2 children. Amanda, our oldest, was 42, and had always been driven, aggressive, hungry for success. She reminded me of myself at that age. Then there was Daniel, our son, 39 years old and as different from his sister as summer from winter. Daniel was a civil rights attorney who worked for nonprofit organizations, defending people who couldn't afford lawyers. He barely made $50,000 a year, but he loved his work. Catherine used to say Daniel got her heart, and Amanda got my ambition. After Catherine died, I couldn't bear to go home to our empty house in Greenwich. Everything there reminded me of her. Her reading glasses on the nightstand, her coffee mug in the kitchen, the garden she'd spent 30 years cultivating. So I threw myself into work, spending 18-hour days at the office, reviewing research protocols and acquisition deals. It was easier to lose myself in balance sheets than to face the silence of that house. 6 months after the funeral, Amanda came to my office. It was a Thursday evening, around 8 o'clock. I remember because I was reviewing our Q3 projections when she knocked. "Dad, we need to talk about your health," she said, sitting down across from my desk. I looked up from my laptop. Amanda was wearing a charcoal gray suit, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked professional, competent, exactly like the COO our company needed. But there was something in her eyes I couldn't quite read. "I'm fine, sweetheart, just tired." "You're not fine. You're working yourself to death. You barely sleep, you've lost 20 pounds, and yesterday during the board meeting, you forgot what we were discussing halfway through your presentation." I felt a flash of irritation. I had a lot on my mind. It happens. It's been happening a lot lately, Dad. Last week you called me Catherine twice. You left your car running in the parking garage for 6 hours. The security guard found it, and David from accounting said you asked him the same question 4 times in one conversation. My stomach tightened. I had called her Catherine. I remembered the moment, the confusion on her face, the awkward silence that followed. But the other things, I couldn't recall them clearly. The details felt fuzzy, like trying to remember a dream after waking. "I'm grieving, Amanda. It's normal to be distracted. It's more than that. I've been talking to Dr. Harrison. He thinks you should get evaluated. There's a wonderful facility in Greenwich, Meadowbrook. They specialize in age-related cognitive decline. Just a few tests, nothing serious. But we need to know what we're dealing with." Dr. Harrison was our family physician, a man I'd known for 15 years. If he was concerned, maybe Amanda had a point. I felt a cold fear settle in my chest. My own father had died of Alzheimer's at 73. I'd watched him fade away, forgetting his children's names, lost in a fog of confusion. Was that happening to me? "All right," I said quietly. "I'll make an appointment." Amanda's face softened. She reached across the desk and squeezed my hand. "Thank you, Dad. I'm just worried about you. We all are. Daniel agrees that you should get checked out. He wanted to be here tonight, but he's in court all week. That should have been my first warning. Daniel and Amanda agreed on nothing. They'd been competitive since childhood, always fighting for my attention, for validation, for control. But grief made me stupid. I wanted to believe my daughter cared about my well-being. The evaluation happened on a Monday morning. Amanda picked me up from my house at 9. She'd arranged everything: the appointment, the facility tour, even the paperwork. Meadowbrook looked more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. High ceilings, expensive art on the walls, a grand piano in the lobby. The kind of place where wealthy families sent their aging parents to be comfortable while they forgot their own names. Dr. Patricia Winters conducted the assessment. She was in her 50s, with kind eyes and a gentle voice that made me want to trust her. She asked me questions for 3 hours. What year was it? Who was the president? Could I remember 3 words she'd told me 10 minutes ago? Could I draw a clock face showing 3:15? I answered everything correctly, or so I thought. But when Amanda and I met with Dr. Winters in her office afterward, the doctor's expression was grave. Mr. Castellano, I'm afraid the results are concerning. You're showing significant signs of early-stage dementia, specifically a form of vascular dementia, likely caused by small strokes you've been having without realizing it. Your MRI shows several areas of concern in your frontal lobe and hippocampus. The words hit me like a physical blow. That's not possible. I feel fine. I'm running a major pharmaceutical company. I just negotiated a $40 million acquisition last month. Many patients in early stages feel fine, Dr. Winters said gently. But the testing doesn't lie, Mr. Castellano. And unfortunately, this type of dementia can progress rapidly. I'm recommending immediate residential care. Meadowbrook has excellent programs for patients like you. We can manage your symptoms, keep you comfortable, and ensure your safety. Safety? I don't need to be locked up. This is insane. Amanda's voice was soft, careful. Dad, please. You can't live alone anymore. What if you leave the stove on? What if you get lost driving home from work? I can't sleep at night worrying about you. And someone needs to run the company. You can't make major decisions when you're having cognitive issues. It's not fair to our employees or our shareholders. I'll hire a caregiver. I'll work from home. There are options besides this. Dr. Winters leaned forward. Mr. Castellano, I need to be honest with you. Based on these tests, I don't believe you have the capacity to make sound judgments about your own care right now. Connecticut law allows family members to petition for conservatorship in cases like this. Your daughter has your best interests at heart. That's when I understood. This wasn't about my health. This was about control, about the company, about the $300 million I'd spent 40 years building. But I was tired. So tired. And part of me wondered if they were right. Maybe I was losing my mind. Maybe the grief had broken something in my brain that couldn't be fixed. My own father had refused to believe he had Alzheimer's until the very end. What if I was doing the same thing? How long would I be here? I asked quietly. That depends on your progression, Dr. Winters said. Some patients are with us for months, others for years. We'll evaluate regularly and adjust your care plan as needed. I looked at Amanda, my daughter, the little girl I'd taught to ride a bike, who'd cried in my arms after her first heartbreak, who'd called me every Sunday without fail since she'd moved out at 23. Surely she wouldn't do this if she didn't truly believe I was sick. Okay, I said. I'll stay, but just for a few weeks, just until we figure out what's really going on. Amanda hugged me tight. Thank you, Dad. This is the right choice. I promise we'll take good care of everything while you focus on getting better. The company is in good hands. That was 22 months ago. I never went home again. The first week was disorienting. They put me in a private room on the 3rd floor with a view of the garden and my own bathroom. It looked nice, comfortable even, but the door locked from the outside. Nurses checked on me every 2 hours. They gave me pills 3 times a day. Blue pills in the morning, white pills at lunch, yellow pills before bed. When I asked what they were for, they said doctor's orders, medication to slow the cognitive decline. I took them because I still believed I was sick. I still trusted that my daughter wouldn't lie to me. But after 2 weeks, something felt wrong. The pills made me foggy, disconnected from my own thoughts. I'd sit in the common room with other patients, watching daytime television with my mind wrapped in cotton. I couldn't concentrate enough to read. I'd start a sentence and forget what I was saying halfway through. This wasn't helping. This was making me worse. I asked to see Dr. Winters. The nurse said she was unavailable. I asked again the next day. Still unavailable. I tried calling Amanda from the phone in the hallway. A nurse intercepted me. "Mr. Castellano, your daughter has requested that we limit your phone access. You've been making confused calls to business associates, and it's been upsetting for everyone. She's acting in your best interest." "I'm not confused. I need to talk to her. She'll visit this weekend. You can talk to her then." But Amanda didn't visit that weekend, or the next one, or the one after that. For 6 months, I didn't see my daughter at all. She sent flowers. She sent cards. She even sent a fruit basket for my 67th birthday. But she never came. Daniel did, though. My son drove up from Manhattan every other Sunday. We'd sit in the garden when the weather was nice, or in the visitor's lounge when it wasn't, and he'd tell me about his cases. A tenant he'd saved from eviction. A man wrongfully accused of assault who'd been exonerated. Daniel's face would light up when he talked about his work, just like his mother's used to. On his 5th visit, I asked him about the company. "How's Amanda managing everything? Is the board happy with her leadership?" Daniel's expression darkened. "Dad, I need to tell you something, but I don't want you to get upset." "What is it?" "Amanda had herself appointed CEO 3 months ago. The board voted unanimously. She told them you'd signed a letter of resignation before checking into Meadowbrook, authorizing the transfer of power." The garden seemed to tilt. "I never signed any letter. I never resigned." "I know, Dad. I've been trying to get access to company records, but Amanda's lawyers have blocked me at every turn. She also had herself appointed your legal conservator. She controls all your assets now. Your house, your bank accounts, your stock options. Everything." I gripped the armrest of my chair. "This can't be legal. There has to be a process, a hearing." "There was. You were declared mentally incompetent by Dr. Winters." Amanda presented the medical evidence to a judge. "I tried to contest it, but I'm just your son. I don't have standing to challenge a medical diagnosis." And Amanda's lawyers argued that I was only interfering because I wanted control of the company myself. "Do you?" Daniel looked at me with his mother's eyes. "No, Dad. I never wanted the company. I never wanted that life. But I do want you out of here, because I don't think you belong here. I've been doing some research. The cognitive tests they used on you, they're subjective. The MRI results, I had an independent neurologist review them. He said there's nothing conclusive. A few minor changes consistent with normal aging, but nothing that indicates dementia." Hope flared in my chest. "Then get me out of here." "I'm trying, but it's complicated. Amanda has power of attorney. She's your legal guardian now. I'd need to prove she's acting against your best interests, and that requires evidence. Evidence I don't have access to." I reached across and grabbed my son's hand. "Then, find it. Please, Daniel. I'm not crazy. These pills they're giving me, they're making me worse. I can't think clearly. Some days I can barely remember my own name. But when they wear off, when I first wake up in the morning, I'm fine. I'm myself. That's not dementia. That's medication." Daniel nodded slowly. "I believe you, Dad. And I'm going to get you out of here. But you need to be patient. This is going to take time." He kept his promise. Over the next year, Daniel worked quietly, carefully, building a case. He got a court order to review my medical records. He hired a forensic accountant to examine what Amanda had been doing with the company. He tracked down 3 nurses who'd worked at Meadowbrook and had concerns about my treatment. He even found an orderly who'd been fired after questioning why I was being given such high doses of psychotropic medication for someone with supposedly mild cognitive decline. But Daniel didn't tell me any of this while it was happening. He couldn't risk it. Any conversation we had could be monitored. Any visit could be witnessed. So he just kept coming every other Sunday, sitting with me in the garden, talking about his cases, pretending everything was normal. And I played along, even though some days the medication made me so foggy I could barely follow what he was saying. I stopped taking the pills. Not all at once. That would have been too obvious. But I started hiding them under my tongue, spitting them out when the nurses weren't looking. I flushed them down the toilet. I crushed them and mixed them with food that I threw away. It took 3 months before my mind started to clear. 3 months of pretending to be docile and confused while secretly regaining my ability to think. And when my mind cleared, I got angry. Not the hot, explosive anger of youth, but the cold, calculated fury of a man who's been betrayed by someone he loved. I started making plans of my own. I noticed patterns, nurse rotations, security protocols, which staff members were sympathetic, which ones were just doing a job. I noticed that Dr. Winters only came on Wednesdays. I noticed that Amanda called the facility every Monday morning at 9 to check on my status, but she never asked to speak to me directly. I also noticed something else. The new patient in room 318 was the wife of a federal judge. The man in room 405 was a retired investigative journalist. The woman who sat next to me in group therapy every Thursday was a former state prosecutor. Meadowbrook was full of brilliant people whose families had warehoused them, and most of them were far more lucid than anyone realized. I started talking to them, quietly, carefully, building alliances. On a Wednesday in March, 16 months after I'd been admitted, Dr. Winters came for my monthly evaluation. I played my part perfectly, confused about the date, struggled to remember 3 words, drew a clock that was slightly off, but not too off, just enough to seem like I was declining slowly, steadily, exactly as her falsified diagnosis predicted. "How are you feeling, Richard?" she asked. "Tired," I said. "But the garden is nice. Amanda visited last month, didn't she?" Amanda hadn't visited in over a year. Dr. Winters' expression flickered with something I couldn't quite read. Guilt? Discomfort? "I'm sure she'll visit soon," Dr. Winters said. "She's very busy with the company." "Of course. She's always been ambitious. Takes after me." After she left, I pulled out the notebook I'd been keeping hidden in the lining of my mattress. I wrote down every detail of our conversation, every question she'd asked, every lie I'd told. I'd been documenting everything for months, building a record that proved I was far more competent than my medical files suggested. 2 months later, Daniel came with news. He looked nervous, excited, trying to hide both. "Dad, I need you to do something for me. Next week, I'm bringing someone to visit you. Her name is Dr. Sarah Chen. She's a neurologist from Mount Sinai. I told the facility she's my girlfriend and wants to meet you. But really, she's going to conduct an informal evaluation. Can you be yourself? Not the person you've been pretending to be. Just you. Amanda will find out. Not if we're careful. Sarah will keep it conversational. No formal tests. Just a visit. But I need her to see that you're competent, Dad. It's crucial for what comes next." Dr. Chen came the following Sunday. She was in her 30s, sharp-eyed, carrying herself with the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly how good she was at her job. We sat in the garden, and she asked me about my life, about Catherine, about the company, about my children. We talked for 2 hours, and I didn't hide anything. I told her about the pills I'd stopped taking, about the fog lifting, about the anger that burned in my chest every morning when I woke up in this place I didn't belong. When she left, she hugged Daniel and whispered something in his ear. He smiled for the first time in months. 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning, 2 things happened simultaneously. First, Daniel filed a motion in Connecticut Superior Court to have Amanda's conservatorship revoked. He presented evidence of medical fraud, financial misconduct, and unlawful imprisonment. He had affidavits from 3 independent neurologists, including Dr. Chen, all stating that I showed no signs of dementia. He had testimony from former Meadowbrook staff about the excessive medication I'd been given. He had financial records showing that Amanda had been systematically looting the company, redirecting funds to offshore accounts, giving herself bonuses that the board had never approved. Second, the Securities and Exchange Commission opened an investigation into Castellano Pharmaceuticals for securities fraud and embezzlement. Amanda didn't see it coming. She'd been so confident in her control, so certain that I was safely locked away and forgotten, that she'd gotten sloppy. The forensic accountant Daniel hired had found everything. $40 million missing. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Stock manipulation. Insider trading. It was all there, documented in excruciating detail. The judge scheduled an emergency hearing for the following Monday. I would be brought from Meadowbrook to testify. If I could prove I was competent, Amanda's conservatorship would be dissolved. I'd be free. I spent that week preparing. I reviewed every note I'd written. I practiced staying calm, focused, articulate. I couldn't afford to seem angry or bitter, even though I wanted to scream. I had to be the rational, competent businessman I'd always been. On Monday morning, 2 orderlies helped me into a suit Daniel had brought. Navy blue, tailored, the kind I used to wear to board meetings. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I'd aged in this place. My hair was fully gray now. I had lines around my eyes that hadn't been there 2 years ago. But my eyes were clear, alert, alive. The courtroom was in Hartford, 40 minutes away. Daniel met me at the entrance. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. "You ready?" he asked. "I've been ready for 22 months. Amanda was already there, sitting with her lawyers at the defendant's table. She wore a black suit, pearls, her hair perfect. She looked like success, like power. She looked like everything I'd taught her to be. When she saw me walk in, her face went pale. I think she'd convinced herself I actually was demented, that the lies she'd told had somehow become true. Seeing me upright, lucid, must have been like seeing a ghost. The hearing lasted 4 hours. I testified for 90 minutes. I answered every question clearly, concisely, demonstrating that my memory was intact, my reasoning sound. I explained how I'd been drugged, how I'd stopped taking the medication, how I documented everything. Amanda's lawyers tried to argue that I was having a moment of clarity, that dementia patients often had good days. But Dr. Chen destroyed that argument. She walked the judge through brain scans, cognitive assessments, blood work showing the levels of psychotropic medication I'd been given, medication that had no justification based on any legitimate diagnosis. Then Daniel presented the financial evidence, the missing money, the fake contracts, the board meetings where Amanda had claimed to have my proxy vote on decisions I'd never approved. I watched my daughter's face as each piece of evidence was presented. She didn't cry. She didn't break down. She just sat there, rigid, as her carefully constructed empire collapsed around her. The judge's ruling was swift. Amanda's conservatorship was revoked immediately. I was declared mentally competent. The judge ordered my release from Meadowbrook effective immediately and referred Amanda's case to the Connecticut Attorney General for criminal prosecution. I walked out of that courthouse a free man for the first time in 22 months. Daniel drove me to his apartment in Manhattan. I couldn't go back to Greenwich yet. The house was still technically part of the estate that was being untangled. So I stayed with my son in his tiny one-bedroom in Hell's Kitchen, sleeping on his couch, drinking coffee on his fire escape, learning how to be human again. It took 6 months to fully resolve everything. Amanda was indicted on 14 counts of fraud, embezzlement, and elder abuse. She took a plea deal. 7 years in federal prison in exchange for returning all the money she'd stolen and surrendering all claims to the company. I returned to Castellano Pharmaceuticals in September. The board welcomed me back with applause, relief, and barely concealed shame. They'd abandoned me so easily, believing a forged letter and a crooked doctor over 30 years of leadership. But I didn't fire them. I didn't burn the company down out of spite. Catherine wouldn't have wanted that. Instead, I restructured everything. New governance policies, new oversight, new ethics training, and I made Daniel my successor, not as CEO, but as chairman of the board. He didn't want it, but I insisted. Someone with integrity needed to watch over what we'd built. I visited Amanda once in prison. She was 3 months into her sentence, looking thin and tired in her orange jumpsuit. We sat across from each other in the visiting room, plastic table between us, and for a long time neither of us spoke. Finally, she said, "I'm sorry, Dad." Are you? Are you sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't know anymore. I convinced myself I was doing the right thing, that you were actually sick, that I was protecting the company, protecting your legacy. But somewhere along the way, I stopped caring about you and only cared about the power. I became someone I don't even recognize." "You became exactly what I taught you to be," I said quietly. "Ambitious, ruthless, willing to do whatever it took to win. That's on me. I showed you how to build an empire, but I never taught you why it mattered. Your mother understood that. She knew the company was just a means to an end, a way to help people, to create something meaningful. But you only saw the money and the power. I can't fix this, can I?" "No, sweetheart, you can't. I left after 20 minutes. I haven't been back since. Some wounds are too deep to heal. I'm 70 now. I retired from Castellano Pharmaceuticals 6 months ago and moved to a small house in Vermont, near where Catherine grew up. I spend my days reading, gardening, taking long walks through the woods she loved. Daniel visits every month. He's rebuilding the company into something his mother would be proud of, focused more on research and accessibility than profit margins. Sometimes I think about those 22 months in Meadowbrook. The pills, the fog, the helplessness of being trapped in my own mind while my daughter stole everything I'd built. Some nights I still wake up panicking, convinced I'm back in that room with the locked door and the garden view. But mostly I think about the lesson I learned too late. Success means nothing if you sacrifice integrity to achieve it. Power means nothing if you're willing to destroy the people who gave it to you. And family means everything, until it doesn't. I lost a daughter in that courthouse, but I gained something more important: myself, my freedom, my clarity, my ability to wake up every morning and know that I'm exactly who I've always been, not a demented old man warehoused in a facility, not a victim, just Richard Castellano, 70 years old, watching the maple trees turn gold outside my window, finally at peace. The day I walked out of Meadowbrook was the day Amanda lost everything. Her freedom, her fortune, her father's love. She gambled it all on a lie, and she lost. I guess she took after me more than either of us realized, because I built an empire on calculated risks. The only difference is, I knew when to stop. She never learned that lesson, and now she's learning it the hard way, one day at a time, in a 6x8 cell in Danbury Federal Prison. Some people say I should forgive her, that she's my daughter, that family is forever. But they didn't spend nearly 2 years trapped in their own mind, wondering if they were actually losing their sanity, while their child stole their life's work. Forgiveness is earned. Amanda hasn't earned it yet. Maybe someday she will. Maybe in 5 years, when she gets out of prison, she'll have changed. Maybe she'll understand what she destroyed. But I won't be waiting to find out. I'm spending the years I have left on things that matter. Daniel's family, the grandchildren Amanda gave me, who I'm finally getting to know now. The garden Catherine would have loved. The quiet mornings when I can think clearly, remember perfectly, and know with absolute certainty that I am exactly who I've always been. My daughter tried to erase me. She failed, and that's the sweetest revenge of all.